We're looking at ratios. Hopefully you're still on day one with your ratios, and we're going to look at specifically equivalent ratios, which is what we started with at the end of the last note. Looking at your textbook, page 113, number 5. Here it says we have an architect. He draws a plan, or she draws a plan for a wheelchair ramp. On the plan, on the piece of paper, it says the ramp is only 2 centimeters high and 24 centimeters long. That's because, of course, it's not drawn to scale. What might the dimensions of the actual ramp be? And how could you use equivalent ratios to find out? Well, a little piece of information that it also gives you in the question is that if you look up on page 113, look at the little yellow piece, it says the maximum height allowed for a wheelchair ramp is 76 centimeters. So if we look at this, here's our sort of drawing, what the architect drew, but we know this isn't the true dimensions, a 2 centimeter height, there's no way. And what if we assume that this ramp in fact was going to lift, go up the full 76 centimeters that it's allowed to? Then if I was going to write this out, you'll see what I'll explain this in a minute, but I have a ratio, of 2 to 24 for height to length. Now if we are looking at a full height of 76, and what then would the length be? 76 centimeters. So 2 to 24 or 76 to what? Now, it doesn't actually say that it has to be 76, but let's just say that it is. A nice way of looking at using a little strategy you can use with equivalent ratios is a little box like this, where you write a T, and then you write the first ratio, 2 and 24, right there, and then we'll write the second ratio underneath, 76, and we want to find out essentially what's in this box. So the way that you do that, or the way that you can do that, is say 2 times 12, right, gives me 24. So I could figure out what this is by just multiplying by 12, same thing. So 76 times 12 is about 920, something like that, 920. Let's see, 76 times 12, 2, 14, 15, 1 times 6 is 6, 1 times 7 is 7, 2, 1, 912. Okay, some quick mental math because I didn't have a calculator on hand, but you could of course use your calculator for that. 912. So my guess then is when it says to what might the dimensions be, my guess is the dimensions are 76 centimeters high, and 912 centimeters. Okay. Based on the question, it's not that clear that it has to be 76 centimeters high. That's not specified, but that does lead us nicely into the next part of our note, where we are looking at specific equivalent ratios. Okay, so you see I've already set up the little T boxes here. So this is saying, just to be clear so you can read this question, you have 2 to 5 is one ratio. Well, an equivalent ratio to that, equals means equivalent, would be 6 to what? And this one's, maybe you might think this one's easy, but let's just learn the strategy. What I've done here is I made a T. I put the first ratio on top, 2 and 5. And then on the bottom, I put the second ratio in the same order that it appears. Now here I've got a blank because I don't know what that is. This is I don't know, right? So what you do is you look for a mathematical relationship that you can use looking at these numbers. So if I go here, I go, well, 2 to 6 is a multiplied by 3. Then I'll just do the same thing on the other side. If I go times 3, that means this must be 15. So the answer here is 15. Okay? So let's use the box again and you can see, okay? So 12 to I don't know, I'd like to know what this number is equal to 8 to 2. Now, looking at it for a relationship that's easy to work with, here it is, here's the one I see. 8 divided by 4 gives me 2. That means 12 divided by 4 will give me my question mark. So see here, I'm working top and bottom. Here I work side to side, and the idea is just to find a relationship that works, that you can easily do the math. I'm avoiding working with the decimal, because if I tried, 12 divided by 8 equals what divided by 2, that's a little bit harder. This is nice and easy. Okay, so 12 divided by 4 is 3, so that means 12 to 3 equals 8 to 2. Okay, so I found the relationship between these two, and I applied it here. Let's do one more. 16 and 5 on the top, and my I don't know, and 5 and 25 on the bottom. Now here again, I see a really nice relationship. 5 times 5 gives me 25, right? So what, basically then I have to say, well, this question mark must be 16 times 5. And you can work that out. 16 times 2 is 32, times 3 is 48, times 4 is 64, times 5 is 80. So this must be 80. And I want to remind you that you are permitted to use a calculator for those things. You don't need to do them in your head. Okay? So that's just working with ratios and figuring out equivalent ratios, and that's just a strategy. It doesn't have to be the strategy that you use, but it is a nice one that makes it, to me, very visual and easy to follow. One more question. Ferd has 2 Gorp, which is good old raisins and peanut mixtures, which, by the way, this is a terrible picture because that's not just raisins and peanuts. But anyway, he's got 2 mixtures. One that has 2 parts peanuts and 3 parts raisins, and the second is a 5 to 8 ratio, in which is nuttier. And geez, I wonder how you could figure out sort of what gives you the biggest ratio. And there's different ways you can do this. The one that I think is the simplest is considering the fact that, if we look at part A, well, we have a ratio of 2 to 3. If I told you earlier that a ratio could also be written like this, 2 divided by 3, and that could be written as a decimal by using the divide button on your calculator, because 2 by 3 equals 2 divided by 3. So if I do this, I go 2 to 3, a 2 to 3 ratio is 0.67. Well, let's look at part B. Here we've got a 5 to 8 ratio. Right? Well, that could be written as 5 divided by 8. Which is equal to, so see, I don't have a calculator on me. Quickly, I can put this in my spreadsheet. A spreadsheet can be worked as a calculator. 5 divided by 8, you could get your calculator out. And 625, 0.625. So let's come back to our note. .625. This tells me that A must be nuttier because when I divide it out, it's higher. Now I just want to say something quick because this could be confusing. If the question isn't which is nuttier, but which is raisinier, then when you do the divide, you'd have to do 3 divided by 2, and you'd do 8 divided by 5. So if you want to know which has more raisins, you'd have to put the raisin number first. Okay? So this is an okay strategy because I'm doing 2 to 3, which is nuts to raisins. Nuts over raisins. If I want to know which one has more raisins, I'd have to go raisins divided by nuts. That's just a little aside. And I think if you work through these problems here, which is your next homework assignment, you will get a better feel for that.